that the Russians have lost around 40,000 men just to capture Bakhmut. And those are only the dead. That's not counting with the wounded. 40,000. Now, you might ask, how many people did Bakhmut have before this war has started? 60,000. For a 60,000 city, they all had to sacrifice almost the same amount of troops just to get it. And most of those people were already gone. They fled the city because they know what the Russians do when they take over. This fact has been realized even by the Russians themselves in Belgorod, because there has been an idea of almost a civil war in Russia already. The Russians are fighting each other now, and when the Russian military takes over again, when it took over a few cities and settlements in the Belgorod region, they started looting them. They didn't care if they were Russian or Ukrainian or whatever. They started looting them because that is their military. That is how they behave. That is how they act. Those are their prerogatives. Those are their behaviors. And we need to know this. Sometimes people speak about Russia as if we can compare what Russia has done to what America has done. Now, my friends, two wrongs don't make it right. And Russia is not the only country in the world that has perpetrated terrible things. But we need to face reality. Look how people live in Russia, and look how people live in America. Look how people live in Russia, and look how people live in Europe. And then make that comparison. Who is living better lives? Who has more of a future? Who is living freer, richer, and more prosperous? It is definitively not Russia, my friends. Because as we've said many times in the past, there is not one but two Russias. One Russia is Moscow and St. Petersburg, these cosmopolitan cities, the big cities, the European cities. And then there is the rest of Russia. Backwater, poverty-stricken villages is what they have. Sure, some of these other cities have millions of people living in them in terrible conditions. And now those conditions are getting even worse. Putin never cared to invest this money he's wasting on declaring war on Ukraine. Mind you, I need to correct myself. Putin did not declare war on Ukraine. Putin simply invaded Ukraine without as much as a declaration of war. And not once, but twice. Once in 2014 and once now, around a year ago, a bit more than a year ago. Now, Putin has done the same thing in Georgia. How come people have not wisened up? Because there are still some who are too naive. There are still some who are too brainwashed. And there are still some who got their pockets filled by the Kremlin money. That's right. We need to understand that there are some people that will directly try to thwart what's best for the West, for Ukraine, for Europe, for the world. Because the only thing those people care about is their own pockets and their own personal benefit. Now, we should all know by this point that pure personal benefit, without thinking of the future, without thinking of the benefit of society, which is always the future for each individual, always results in disaster. But Russia doesn't care. Russia doesn't care if it will create a failed state at every single country at its border. That's exactly what they want to do. Russia doesn't care if there's going to be mass starvations in Africa and the Middle East. Countries that are importing Ukrainian and Russian grain, and countries that are not being able to import as much grain anymore because, of course, Russia is blockading the Black Sea and not allowing Ukrainian grain shipments to go safely. That's exactly what Russia wants to do. If you think this is nothing but a mistake, think again. The Russians have admitted on their state-owned media, and they've admitted it many times, that they want to cause a mass starvation, that they want to cause extermination, and that they will kill as many Ukrainians as it will take until Ukraine is theirs. that is not a peace-making country, my friends. That is not a liberator. That is an exterminator. And we must see Russia for what it is. And now the most important part comes. And this is something that every single person in the world needs to know. Every person who's here at the protest and who's not, every person who's walking past, every person in the car and walking by foot needs to know this. Russia is not neutral to you. Russia hates you. It despises you. It wants you to lose everything you have for almost no benefit for them whatsoever. The only benefit they need is to see your misery. That is the kind of country that Russia is. What kind of a benefit would Russia have out of making failed states, out of its neighbors, you might ask? Well, no long-term benefit, that's for sure. But the Russians wanted to return to this old idea, this their beloved idea of the genocidal Soviet Union coming back to oppress those people who they've oppressed in the past. They want this idea. They want to return to such a world. But this is when we say no. We will not return to the past. Instead, we will go to the future, to a better future than the future that Russia envisions. And that is why we must speak to the whole world so that everybody knows that this is also their problem. Because Russia will not stop at Ukraine, as it did not stop in Georgia, it did not stop in Kazakhstan, it did not stop in Belarus. They will continue. They will continue to Moldova and then to NATO. If they see that NATO has become toothless, they will not hesitate. They will attack NATO. And no alliance will stop them from doing so. Because if they feel like Ukraine has been thrown under the bus and nobody cares anymore, who is there to say that Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania will not be simply thrown under the bus? This is why we must not give up, and we must bring this war to an end. And the only way to end this war is to help Ukraine win. Help Ukraine protect peace.
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 Stop Russia, stop the war.
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 And now, my friends, we will have a short musical break.
2 minutes.
2 minutes. Oh, in 2 minutes? Oh, and it doesn't last 2 minutes. It's going to come in 2 minutes. So,
Oi, bro.
there is one more thing.